to stand here and talk for a few minutes because hopefully we'll be going live. But see, I can't see anything yet on my Facebook page.
Huh. Wow.
Is it showing that it's live? There we go. Hey, all right.
Yes.
All right. Well, hey, welcome. All right, did you turn it off?
No, my phone was on airplane mode.
Okay. Your phone was on airplane mode?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I wouldn't start the video.
All right, so we should be all set. Our technological errors are corrected. Please let us know if you can't hear or you can't follow along. But what I thought we would do to begin with is to introduce each other.
You want me to introduce you?
And then I'll introduce you.
Okay.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay? Friends, this is Rebekah Raitz. She is an incredible human being who is breaking her father's heart because it is the last week of high school for her.
I'm relieved.
Are you relieved?
Very relieved.
Okay. She still loves NSYNC. I don't know if her friends would be, or she'd be embarrassed about that. I don't know. She loves TV shows like, I was going to say CSI, but you don't like CSI.
No, I like Law and Order SVU.
Law and Order SVU.
But it has to be SVU.
She loves The Office. And yeah, and we love laughing together. That's Rebekah Raitz.
Friends, this is...
That was great. I like how you said that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is Jason Raitz, pastor of Thrive Church. He loves Justin Timberlake, Matt Damon, and Tim Tebow.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
For a while, it was Justin Bieber as well, but...
It was, I still love the Biebs because he's kind of met Jesus. And so I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
All the love to the Biebs. Okay.
Oh
All right, so I'm done trying to be cool. We already have a comment here, which is very, very cool. Patty Zucker, thanks for the welcome. I love it. Well, hey, thanks. I appreciate this. Would love if any of you would share this on your feeds, especially if you know parents and or teenagers, that this conversation would help. And if you want to get our videos, press the follow button so you're good to go. Okay, so we'll jump right in. This webinar, we're going to go through it pretty quickly, is called The Crazy Teenage Years. Does that resonate with you at all?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little
Okay.
bit.
So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about parenting through the crazy teenage years. And then we're going to talk about teenaging through the crazy teenage years. And I think I just made that word up.
Yeah, I think you did too.
Okay, do you like it?
I mean, yeah, we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Okay, so here's my thought for this webinar. Teenagers are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Parents are crazy.
Yep.
Teenagers think parents are crazy.
Yep.
Parents think teenagers are crazy.
Yep.
But I think it doesn't have to be so crazy.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. I think so many parents think they have to rule with an iron fist, and they've convinced themselves they can never have a great relationship with their teenagers. But here's the crazy part. I don't think parents, we have to rule with an iron fist. And I think you can not only get through the crazy years, you can have a great relationship with your teenager. What do you think about that?
I think you're spot on.
Am I on to something?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have been a parent of a teenager for, well,
I've been a teenager for...
how many years? 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 years.
18.
I've been a parent for 18 years, and then I've been a youth pastor and a pastor and worked with students for the past 23 years. 23 years. So I've seen some crazy stuff as I was a youth pastor. I saw helicopter parents.
Mm-hmm.
What comes to mind when you think helicopter parents?
Always hovering around their children.
Always hovering around their children. Do you have any, not to name names because we don't want to call anybody out, but do you know anybody that way?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen helicopter parents times 10. Like, not just hoverers, but like they're like all over the place.
It's like a box that they're just carrying their child in.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Even as parents of teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen hippie parents. I mean, what comes to mind when you think of hippie parent?
I don't even know.
Well, like, yeah, do whatever you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah. And then recently I found out the new kind of parenting, which is karaoke parenting. Do you know what this kind of parenting is?
Do they just kind of like copy what other people do?
Yes.
Look at that.
Yes.
Senior in high school.
They not
There
only
you go.
copy what other people are doing, but they're trying to copy their teens because they want to be cool like their teens. They want to relive their teenage years. So they're dressing like their teens. They're talking like their teens. I don't dress like a teenager, do I?
No, you're good.
All right. I mean, I got dance moves like a teen, but
We'll discuss that later.
Okay, I did wanna. I never got a chance to chaperone one of your proms.
Oh darn.
That'd have been nuts. That'd have been fun busting kids who brought alcohol in. Okay, would that not have been fun?
Yeah.
All right. Here's reality too. I've seen teenagers who are crazy. I remember sitting in a small group once with 10 junior high boys. One junior high boy was sitting this close next to me, and he turned to me and he was about to say something, and instead of covering his mouth, he just sneezed this close to me. And I'm not talking like, Achoo. I mean, it was a teenage boy, no emotional intelligence, no self-awareness. All, I mean, literally had to wipe the lenses off my glasses.
That's nasty.
I've also seen parents who, as they were dropping off their teens on a retreat, you were too young for this one. You may have come as a baby. You were probably like a preteen. They told me and they told their teenager that they wanted them to text them every 30 minutes on the retreat. Have I ever done that to you?
No.
Like, I text you when you're on retreats.
Yeah. There's been retreats I go on where I'm not even allowed to take my phone.
I know,
How would
crazy.
that work? Did they just not go?
Okay, so let's jump into this conversation. Why the teenage years are so crazy. So what we thought we'd do is we'd do 5 crazy things from Becca's perspective as a teenager, and then 5 crazy things from Jason as a parent perspective. Okay, so why don't you go first? 5 crazy things from a teenager's perspective. Go.
Alright, so the first thing is everything's changing. Physically, emotionally, and your environment is also changing. Friends and frenemies are a really big part of your life at that moment.
And that's number 2.
That's number 2.
Number 2, friends and frenemies. Nice.
Thanks. Number 3, high school is stupid stressful now, and I'm going to use that exact wording because it is. It's actually been scientifically proven that high schoolers now have the same anxiety levels as people who are put in the mental hospitals in the 1950s.
Ooh,
It's kind of crazy.
it is stressful.
Scientific fact there.
Yeah, that's nice.
Number 4, bullying is a real thing, and no matter how small it is, it will affect a teenager the same. All of them.
Not even just you personally getting bullied, but watching other people bully.
Yeah. Watching other people get bullied, watching people bully, it's a big thing now.
Can we just pause right there? We didn't talk about this. It's not in our notes.
Oh
But
boy.
oh boy, what level, what degree do you feel like you've been bullied throughout junior high and high school?
I mean, I kind of go to a kind of chill school, so like my grade were kind of chill. So I've never personally been bullied in junior high and high school at my school. I mean, I was picked on a lot 4th grade year. I was picked on a lot,
Yep.
but in high school now, I've never really experienced like full-on bullying.
Yep. Okay, so number 4, bullying, and then number 5.
Number 5, they have to figure out the rest of their lives in 4 short years. And even though it seems like we don't, it's pressure. Like it's a very big pressure on us to try to figure that out before high school ends.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. Mom and Dads, here's what I hope you'll do later. If you're not watching this with your teenager or your grandson or your granddaughter or nephew or a niece, or if you're a mentor in someone's life, like, would you watch this later with them? And then ask them, do they agree with Becca? Maybe they have a different set. But that's kind of 5 crazy things from a teenager's perspective. Let's go on. 5 crazy things from a parent's perspective. And so I'm going to lace these in with just the reality of where teenagers are in 2018. So for 20-some years, I've studied or tried to study adolescent development and just the growth of teenagers throughout the years. And so some of this stuff is laced in. So the first one, I'm going to copy yours. Everything's changing. This is the season of life, right? They're learning absolute independence. And here's the reality. Mom and Dad just aren't as smart anymore. Would you agree with that?
A little bit.
A little bit,
Little
okay.
bit.
All right. And we're just trying to have an honest conversation. So, like, I want Becca to tell me, like, if she agrees or not agrees. That's kind of thing. So everything's changing. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, I'm going to copy again. Teenagers are dealing with more stress than ever before. To piggyback on top of the research that she told you about, there is research now that the average teenager is dealing with the same levels of PTSD as returning World War II soldiers. Like, it's just absolutely amazing. There's a lot of reasons for that. Technology. A lot of people feel technology is one of the main reasons for that. The instant information era, right? I mean, what did you do before Google?
I don't even remember.
Right?
Because it's just been there.
Right. So you're starting your freshman year at CMU this fall. In 1993, I started my freshman year at Eastern Michigan University. And do you know where I had to go get information?
Did you have to go to the library?
The library.
Oh my
I
God.
know, right? I had to search through books. Our kids have instant information. I think the other thing it's stressful about is they download so much information, more information. We've had more of an information change in the last 10 years than the previous 500 years. I mean, we can get information so quick. My 13-year-old just went on a band trip to Chicago, and I sat in the parents' meeting, and I could see some other parents pretty nervous. It was actually pretty funny. I'm sitting there thinking, I could drop my kid in the middle of anywhere, and as long as he had an iPhone, he'd get an Uber, he'd text me to get some money on his Apple Pay, and he would be absolutely fine. I mean, do you think about that?
Yeah.
Tell me if you agree with this. One of the things that your mother and I have tried to do with you is we've tried to get you to a point to where you could navigate an airport all by yourself. Do you think you could do that?
Well, I've done it before, so
Okay.
I think we're good on that.
Okay. The beautiful thing is our first flight was, how old were you?
I was 8.
8 years old.
So 10 years ago.
And even at 8 years old, she was telling me what to do in the airport.
I have a list.
That's pretty great. Okay, that's number 2. Teenagers dealing with more stress than ever before. And number 3, they need rest. Like mom and dads, we're on them all the time. You need to clean your room. You need to pick up after yourself. You need to get a job. You need to go try out for more sports. You got to learn Spanish. You got to take more PSAT prep. But the reality is teenagers need rest. Their bodies are growing more during this phase than any other time in their life except 0 to 2. So that's the crazy thing. 0 to 2 teenage years, their heart is pumping so fast. They need 10 hours of sleep a night. 10 hours. Do you think you get 10 hours of sleep a night?
I can't even remember. Okay, I think it was the summer before I started my senior year. There was a week where I would get almost 10 hours of sleep. I think last night I got about 6.
Okay. All right. The question I think parents have to ask ourselves is, do our teens have any downtime? And are we modeling rest to them? Okay, that's number 3. Another one is we got to help them figure out the balance of school and life. They're growing up quicker before. Here's a reality. I think with this information age and how they're growing up quicker before, they have access to so much more information when it comes to relationships and sexual relationships than ever before. For instance, when I was a kid, if I wanted to look at pornography, I had to walk to a corner store and hopefully look around the corner at a bad magazine that was on the shelf. Now, you can go on your phone and get instant pornography all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So they're exposed to all of this stuff quicker and more than ever before. Ever before. And then number 5, kind of crazy thing from my perspective, I think parental pressure is crazier intense than ever before. What do you think?
I agree.
We'll go for a little honesty here. How intense do you feel like the pressure I've put on you is at times to be all you can be?
Sometimes it's a lot.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not a lot, but there are times where school and then sports and then church and then added pressure from parents kind of gets all jumbled up, and it's not always fun to deal with.
It's not always fun. I remember speaking at a retreat once for a Chinese Christian church in Troy or Auburn Hills, Michigan. And I went on the retreat and I spoke to the Chinese American teenagers and the pressure they were under. I mean, the pressure, at 16 to get a 34 on the ACT. And I remember meeting one student, his parents wouldn't let him play the guitar because it was an inferior instrument to the violin. And just the pressure he was feeling of learning everything and being the absolute best. The pressure is very real. And we're pushing our kids more than we ever have. So that's kind of 5 perspectives from a parent. If you could think of any more, put them in the comments. We're watching, and we would love to talk about that. So Becca, let's round the corner then. I think for the most part, people could agree with us that the teenage years are crazy for students. Teenage years are crazy for parents. Some parents deal with it with an iron fist. Some parents deal with it with like, do whatever you want. Some teenagers deal with it with just absolute anarchy. And then some teenagers kind of feel like they fall in line. So what I want to talk about is how you and I have navigated the last 4 years. Because I really think like there are some ways to make the relationship not so crazy. What do you think?
I agree.
You agree?
I agree.
Okay, well let's go through these. Why don't you start with the first one?
All right, the first one is we communicate. We're always communicating.
We're communicators.
Communicators.
Oh, I like what you said there. Always communicating.
Mm-hmm. I texted you when I was in a track meeting about when this was. So, communication.
She did. She did. What have you learned specifically about communication?
It's always important to do it right away. Don't wait to do it because it doesn't always work out if you wait.
What doesn't work out about it?
Well, for us, we have this thing called the family Google Calendar. And what you want to do is not in that calendar when you want it. And even if you remind your parents every day up until the day it is, and they get mad at you because you didn't put it in the family calendar.
Well, there's a reason for the Google Family Calendar. There's a reason for it. It only exists if it's in the calendar.
You're the only one who uses
Oh,
it.
that's not true. Here's what I've learned about communicating with Rebekah and with my other teenagers. If I decide I want to have a conversation with them, and they're not ready to have a conversation, it's gonna be me talking and them kind of zoning out, even though we have a good relationship with each other.
Yeah.
But what I've found is when she's ready to talk, I need to be ready to talk, and it's just so amazing how that conversation goes. It's so amazing. So let's talk about some practical ways to communicate between teenagers and parents. Teenagers and parents. Okay? Why don't you go first?
We have a group chat. Me and my mom and my dad.
We
have
do.
A group chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And Becca, she does a great job of what was I going to try to say? Getting ahead of the curve. You know, because we're always trying to think details. There's 5 kids in the Raitz family, so we're always trying to figure out schedules. And so she'll just go, hey, remember, I've got this going on.
This at this time, this place with this person. We need to be here at this time.
One of the things I've learned is it doesn't do anybody any good to get manipulative or angry in text messages. It just doesn't. Like super passive-aggressive text messages. I have sent mine in the past.
I have sent mine as well.
It just feels gross when we do that. I think a good thing to remember is to always begin the texts in encouragement or the calls with encouragement and end with I love yous. What do you think?
I agree.
It goes a long way. Like, for instance, I was doing this walk on Saturday morning and Becca left this tiny little Post-it note. Good luck, Dad. I love you. Well, this tiny little Post-it note is probably going to go on my wall someday because this meant the world. Tiny little Post-it note meant the world. Was just huge. Becca, what's one of my bad hobbies when it comes to texts?
When he wants you to fix something, he'll send, hey, I'm so proud of you, but I need you to fix this, but I love you.
Okay, so that might be a little manipulative. Or a little...
It's like a compliment sandwich, but with
Oh.
proud and love.
Oh, a compliment
and then
sandwich.
with what exactly you need to fix right in the middle.
Yeah. Okay, she's got me on that one. Okay, here's the other thing about communication that we have found works really well, is to actually be honest. This is kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah.
I don't even know, I don't even have a count of how many teenagers over the years have confided in me as their youth pastor or their small group leader that they can never talk to their parents about whatever it is, school or friends or sex or relationships or all that kind of stuff. I think we've had our fair share of the tough conversations.
Yeah.
As awkward as it is. Now, Becca has a little bit of a different role because she has sat in the seats under many, many of my sermons. So she's heard my sermons about prayer and love and sex and all those different kind of things. And we've just had those tough conversations. Mm-hmm. And so we just have those. We talk about the tough stuff. We talk about the easy stuff. Like I've always tried to be an expert in my kids. I just tried to be an expert. So I want to know everything that she loves, and then I want to ask her about those loves. Like, for instance, one of her greatest loves is to keep her room messy. It just seems
Not
like
all the time.
it
Okay,
seems
I
like a
clean
passion.
it. I clean it and then I have to get ready and then clothes I just throw them on the floor and
Yep.
then I just don't pick them up. It's just the clothes.
Anything else you would say about communicating, especially with your parent, or maybe something you've learned from? Because I know our relationship. I'm not oblivious to the fact that our relationship is a little different than some parents and teens. Do you have some friends who maybe you would say don't have this kind of relationship?
Yeah, definitely.
And so have you been on the other end of listening to stories about your friends try to figure out how to communicate with their parents?
All the time.
All the time. So when it comes to communication, these are just some of the things that we've learned. Okay, so that's one way not to make the teenage years pretty crazy. The second way, these are in no order of importance. Why don't you do this one?
Go on trips together. As we said before, we've been going on trips together, well, forever. I think my first trip I was 6 weeks old and you guys went to Disney World.
We did. 6 weeks old, we put her in a minivan and drove her to Disney World. It was crazy.
I don't remember a thing.
Nope.
Not a thing. But, and then when I was 8, we started doing, like, flying trips together.
We started doing flying trips.
My favorite.
Yes, I got to tell you a quick story about this one. I was booked to speak at a junior high event in Kansas. And Becca was 8 years old. She had her suitcase packed. She had her bag packed. She had her doll, Morgan. Like, all ready to go. We had our plane tickets. And for the week leading up, I started to get this infection. I don't know what the scientific way to say it is, but my armpit region. And I ended up getting a nasty infection. And the morning of the flight, I couldn't even lift my arm up because the infection had spread all over the place. And so we had to cancel the trip.
I was very upset.
And it broke our heart.
Very upset. We did go like a couple weeks later.
We did. We ended up getting there. But where else have we been together on a trip?
California, multiple times, northern and southern. We've been to Kansas. Ecuador was our big trip.
What would you say of all these trips, just you and I? What was your favorite trip?
Ecuador.
Ecuador. Why was Ecuador your favorite trip?
It was different than the others. It was like a mission trip kind of feeling, but we got to see like behind the scenes and how they actually, like how Compassion actually does things. And we actually got to meet one of our sponsor kids, which was the coolest thing in the entire world.
It was pretty special seeing Yasil hug Becca and hug Yasil's mom right there in Ecuador. It was a pretty awesome thing. Now, maybe you can't go on big trips together. We've done lots of little trips. We've done daddy-daughter dates. Mm-hmm. Yep. Which I just need to pause right there. Your aunt that just left a comment. This chick is cool, but that guy gives me the creeps.
Hi, Rosie.
Come on. Come on. Okay, so let's talk about some of these trips together. If you can't go far away, go somewhere. Like, go to your Google Calendar and just schedule some times together, whether it's shopping, whether it's dinner, whether it's hanging out, whether it's daddy-daughter trips. Just some type of trips. Do something together. Oh, boy. Okay. Okay, so it's not your aunt, it's your uncle.
That makes a lot more sense.
My little brother,
That makes a lot
and
more sense.
he's making some comments.
Hi,
Thank
Uncle
you.
Jimmy.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so number 2, go on trips. That has really helped our relationship, just us being alone together and being able to have those conversations. Oh, can we just tell a story? Well, what did we do your 18th birthday this year?
Okay, so we went to visit Thrive, California, and then on our way back, we stopped in Vegas for a day. And it was a lot of fun. We were both extremely sick, and you can't really do a lot when you're not exactly 18 yet in Vegas. We walked a lot.
Yeah, now, we weren't doing any of the, the stuff there. We were there because, why? Because one of your favorite places in the world is Paris. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm never going to be able to afford to take her to Paris. So I took her to the Paris Hotel, and she saw the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
That's it.
It was a lot of fun.
That's it. And then we ended up walking for about 5 hours, and then we spent the next 6 hours in our hotel room watching The Office.
Yeah, there's a marathon on.
It was awesome. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, okay? Number 3, be accepting of the plan. Be accepting of the plan. She has a plan. I have a plan. God has a plan. And we've got to all figure out how she can move into God's plan the most. And so the struggle for me is I've had a plan for her since the day she was born. And the plan goes like this. Becca goes to Bible college, preferably somewhere in Southern California, right on the ocean.
Azusa.
Dad has, I would, Susa, yeah. I would have loved to be able to visit her every 3 or 4 months. That necessarily didn't line up with your plan. And so my hope was for Bible college. But here's what I know. I trust her enough. And I know that she's been talking to God. And so what are your plans right now at 18?
I'm going to attend CMU in the fall.
Tell people, because there's other people not from Central Michigan.
Central Michigan University.
There it is.
Because there is another CMU.
There is.
Remember.
Carnegie Mellon University.
That's it. So I'm going to
Milligan? No. Monopoly? Something.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
I'm going to attend CMU. I'm going to get my bachelor's in psychology, major in psychology, minor in history. And then from there, my plan is to transfer to U of M to do their grad program for forensic psychology.
So Dad's plan is she would pastor a church because she is an unbelievable leader. Years ago, my friends would have said, oh, she could marry a pastor. Nope. No, I believe she could be the pastor of a church. She could plant a church. If she wanted to go in ministry, I would hire her to be a youth pastor because she's just that phenomenal. But here's the reality. She's going into ministry. Like, she's going to use the gifts that God's given her. So I had to be accepting of the plan. That's why the communication was so important. That's why we have to talk. Let me just ask you a tough question. This is a tough question. How have you dealt with the fact that you know that what you want to do wasn't really what Dad wanted you to do?
I kind of, for a push to the side, didn't really be like, oh yeah, that's great. Let's look at this college. But I wasn't dismissive about what he wanted, and I would talk to him about it, but I would also make sure that he understood what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And so I think that's where the communication is super important. Okay, so number 3, be accepting of the plan. 2 more. 4, me as a dad, I have to, and my wife as the mom and the dad part here, we have to model being actively involved in our faith and church. That's just it. We have to actively be involved in that. One of my favorite, Babylon Bee. If you've never heard of Babylon Bee, it's a satire Facebook page and a website. It's a Christian satire. They put up a post that said, Christian parents are shocked that after nominal church involvement for 12 years, their daughter doesn't want anything to do with church. Whoa!
What?
We've got to be. So do you feel like, okay, you've grown up in a Christian home, your grandparents are all Christians, you've helped plant a church. We told Becca early on, it's not mom and dad planting the church, it's mom and dad and Becca and Bobby and Zach and Maddie planting. She's a church planner. Do you feel like faith, church has been forced on you, or do you feel like you've kind of had your opportunity to put it together?
I mean, it's always kind of been expected that to keep your faith in our family, but beliefs were never really forced onto me. Like, I was never told you have to believe this way. They would always be like, this is what we believe, and this is what the Bible says, and they would kind of leave it up to me to interpret it in my own way.
Mm-hmm. So one of the proudest days of my life when I was able to baptize her in the lake about 5 minutes from my house with my dad when she publicly declared that Jesus was your Lord and Savior. What was one of your earliest faith memories?
When I was little, well, I mean, there's a lot, but when I was little, you would always read, like, before I would go to bed, you would read me the stories in the Bible. And my favorite one was the one with the little girl who was really sick and was dying. And her dad found out that Jesus was in their town and rushed out to the streets and begged him, please save my daughter. And he would come. And we would read that one every night. We'd be like, okay, let's read this one too. And I'd say, well, can we read this one first?
See what I'm telling you? She's a storyteller. Like, she's a communicator. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm over it. Yeah, right? But that's our we had that moment together. And here's the thing, like, have you felt like, as even though I'm a pastor, have you felt like I've forced you to be a part of church and youth group?
I mean, you were always like, you probably should go, and you should probably be there. But, I mean, there was a time when, a couple years ago, I had a really rough part in our youth group, and I kind of wanted to
Okay, you're kind of underselling it. Rough part, like tears, like she's struggling, not wanting to be a part. I mean, so she's making it sound, but I mean, this was like intense struggles, and it was a really tough season for us.
Yeah, it's probably the only time that I didn't want to go to church or youth group.
Yep.
And you kind of saw that, and you kind of said, okay, I'm not going to force you to go. You can go if you want to, but you don't have to. And I think having that freedom to make the choice myself kind of made me want to keep going. I mean, there was a couple weeks where I didn't go, but after a while I was like, okay, I really want to go back. So
Again, this is that pattern of trust. And I know some of you are watching going, okay, this would never work with my teenager because we're not even talking to each other. Start now. Start with little steps. Start with tiny little steps. Start communicating better. Start planning some trips together. Start doing some of those things. And then you, dad or mom, stepmom, stepdad, model faith and model church together. Here's the reality. In our household, church is just, it's a part of the equation. So I just can't separate Christianity from not being a part of church. People tell me all the time as a pastor, I love God, I love Jesus, but I don't like the church. Guess what? I have been drastically hurt by the church. You have had a front row seat to that. Mm-hmm. I've tried to protect you from that. Yeah. But you've definitely seen seasons of my life when I have felt betrayed or hurt and in crazy amounts of pain. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Yes.
Even in the midst of all of that, I just can't give up on the church. It's the bride of Christ. And so why would I want my child, my kids, to only have a nominal part in that? I have to model that. And so here's the big part of modeling faith to your kids and modeling church is I actually care what she thinks about church. How many times have I asked you about church?
Like 50 times a day.
Okay. But like questions like, what do you think? How could it be better? What would you do differently? How could we reach more teenagers? Questions like that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So start as young as possible with your kids. Like, start as young as possible. 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old. We're always talking about Jesus and church. Jesus and church. Mm-hmm. Here's the beautiful thing about teenagers, too, when it comes to faith and church. Like, I'm going to treat them how I want to be treated. I've seen this time and time again as a pastor over the years. A parent will come and sit down, and they'll go, I don't understand why my teenager screams at me all the time. And then later in the conversation, I find out that that parent screams at their family all the time. Okay, that's why, right? I mean, that's how it is. So parents, your kids will model how you treat them. If you snap at them, they will snap back. If you treat them with respect, you ask for their opinions, it's going to go a lot further. Would you agree with that?
Yes. I like to snap back when someone snaps at me.
You do like to snap back.
I'm very good at that.
Yes.
Snap.
Okay, we got to keep moving. I want to honor your time. The last one is, go ahead, number 5.
The right friends are so important. I know growing up, I've kind of been able to find the right group of friends all the time, but I know a lot of people don't always choose the right groups. And I think parents, like, get to know your child or your teenager's friends. Like, have a relationship with their friends and voice your opinions on their friends. I know, like, I've never really had to be like, my friend is doing this, and my mom's like, okay, you need to drop them. But, like, she's definitely been like, okay, but that's not how they should treat you. And, like, I've been able to take her advice and relay it and fix friendships.
Wow, that's really good. We tried to teach you early on that, I mean, your friendships will influence you like crazy. So it's so important to pick friends who are going to influence you to do positive things.
One of the big things we learned from Big Stuff last year with filters is who you're around is who you will become.
Just so if you don't know what that was, Big Stuff is a summer camp that our youth group goes to. I sat behind her and I just furiously saw her taking notes on her iPhone, and I love that you've kind of retained that, and so you've kept that. Yeah. I think one of the things that I've always tried to do with her as well at church or in different situations, I'm just a natural connector. I want people to feel connected. So how many times have I said, Becca, go and meet that person?
A lot. It'll be like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, what do you want? And he's like, okay, see that girl over there? Yeah, you need to go over there and be as casual as possible, introduce yourself, and invite her to youth group. And like, all right, got this.
Here's what Becca didn't know. Behind the scenes with all her friendships, her mother and I have been praying for all of them. So she comes home and she talks about her friend, I'll just make up a name, her friend Samantha. We pray for Samantha. We pray for Samantha's parents. We pray that God would keep them safe as they're driving to hang out, as they're going to track meets. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes work that happens. The other kind of crazy thing that happened is a lot of your friends, not a ton, but they actually know what's going on with me because some of them have seen me on social media.
It's crazy. There's a couple kids I know who follow his blog, and I don't always follow your blog.
I know.
I mean, yeah.
So mom and dads, get to know your kids' friends if you can. And not try to be the weird, parent that's like, yeah, so tell me all of your greatest aspirations. No, just open up your home, make it as inviting as possible. Doing those kind of things. Okay, that's 5. 5 very simple ways, but complex ways to make the parent-teenager relationship not so crazy. Mom and dads who rule with an iron fist. Would you just try? Maybe the relationship is just too far gone, but would you try to scale it back a little bit and try to institute some of these ways? Teenagers who just think your parents are like absolutely crazy, try some of these ways and see what will happen. Mom and dads, teenagers, nothing about this is easy. Nothing of it. But it doesn't have to be crazy. You can actually have a good relationship with your teenager. And even though she's breaking my heart, and she's done with high school this week, and she's graduating, and she's going to college and all that kind of stuff, I'm so excited for the next season to come because she is one of my absolute favorite human beings on planet Earth. And I love hearing her perspective. Do you have any closing words that you'd like to say?
Trust your teenagers. They need to make their own mistakes to be able to make the right decisions in the future.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask you to do a few things before you leave. Would you press the follow button so when our webinars come up in the future, we'd love for you to follow along and see what will happen. Would you also go to my public page on Facebook? It's Jason Raitz Communications. And would you give us a like, please? You can follow along with what's happening. You can see kind of our summer speaking schedule. Right now, we're scheduled to be in Atlanta, in Indiana, in Alabama, in Tennessee, and in Florida. So we're speaking at summer camps. We're speaking at a bunch of churches in the South. And we would love for you to follow along with what's happening there. And you can also go to my blog, jasonraitz.com, and follow along. Last thing I'll tell you really, really quick is October 22nd. I would love for you to be a part of that date. I'm saying we. It's kind of all a family affair. I'm releasing my first book called Do Good. And so to kind of set off that book release party, we're renting a theater here in downtown Mount Pleasant, so we're going to have it on Facebook Live, but we're going to film kind of the Keystone Talk for the Do Good book. I've invited some friends who are incredible musicians to play some music that night, and we actually hope to sell enough books that all the proceeds are going to do a shoe project at a local school. Our church, Thrive Church, hosts these things called shoe projects at least once a year, coming up on twice a year, where we buy every single child in the elementary school a brand new pair of shoes. And so we hope that the proceeds of this book will go to do an entire school. So please follow along and be a part. Thank you again for joining us. Would be honored if you would share this and watch it with your teenager. We'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks.